Welcome to this ELTP draft preview show. I've got some wonderful Tag Pro experts with me today. I'm joined by DaEvil1. Say hello.
Hello.
I'm joined by the mysterious SuperFunHugs.
How's it going?
We're also joined by the sexy Fordin
Sup, dude?
and the annoyingly southern OnlyBall.
Hello.
So these four have very kindly joined me today to kind of look through a bit of the draft packet and who we think is going to go in the next couple of rounds, who we think the fifth men are going to be, and then look a little bit further down the draft order and see who some of the hidden gems maybe will be. So quite a lot of players to talk through. Obviously, the draft is happening this Sunday. What time is it? I should know that. Is it about 5 o'clock the draft is happening? Does anyone know? Is it confirmed yet?
Yeah. I think it's 5 o'clock BST.
Yeah, so 5 o'clock BST, and that'll be followed by the champions versus champions, and then the All-Stars versus All-Stars matches of ELTP versus MLTP. So it's going to be an exciting Tag Pro filled fun day. So we're going to kind of start by going through who we think is absolutely sure thing to go to kind of go in the next two rounds. So essentially, we're thinking there should be 9 attackers and 11 defenders. We agreed on to kind of form, the top 4 players for each team. So everyone's got 2D and 2O players. We couldn't decide 100% on a top 9 and a top 11, but we did manage to get 6 attackers that we were between us almost sure we're going to go in the next 2 rounds. So, DaEvil, would you like to take us through those?
Yeah, sure. In terms of offenders, we have a few that we decided would probably be certain to be gone within the next 2 rounds, and those are Strategio, Kyrie Irving, Korhol, Nerol, Facman, and Shakalaka.
I think there was a little question about Strategio because of computer or FPS issues, but we're thinking that he's talented enough and might have them fixed that he'll probably still go ahead of some of the others. Was that right?
Yeah, I think it's the same sort of case with Shakalaka. Some sort of issues, but we're pretty convinced that he'll be selected anyway.
Okay, and then if we hop over to the defenders, OnlyBall, if you want to take us kind of down that list.
Yeah, the defenders that we're pretty sure will get drafted to play to start ELTP are Whiskey Joe, Fat, Test, Defender, DrMcDonald, Kira, Hypernome, Dude, and Micro. And
I think there's probably a couple more on this list than the attackers where people might raise their eyebrows and say they're not dead certs, but does anyone want to kind of mention a few of those for us?
And about Fat, he's going to miss about 3 weeks of ELTP, so but he's pretty good. And if his team makes the playoffs, he'll probably be there anyways. So it's also a bit risky, but might work out.
I mean, of course, how much does Fat use his mic? Is he using it at all in league games at the moment?
Yeah, I think he uses it for league. I've never heard him talk, but
me neither.
What about
I think,
go on.
Yeah, somebody to talk about Micro, who obviously played for Rolling BC Miners throughout season 2, but he, for people that would know, is captained the Ghost Boosters in the MLTP, who won the league and were hugely successful. He won loads of MLT awards, and even with like American Ping, he was, in my opinion, one of the best players in the season. So I think he's sure to be picked up by somebody.
I think it's a bit weird to ask this question about myself, but I know a couple of OnlyBall for you kind of had doubts about, maybe myself, Kira, and Dude a little bit, or between you, I think, maybe. About being dead certs anyway.
I think, I certainly think you will be picked and are good enough to pick, but I think, it's the issue of playing minors for a season. Some people have doubts about whether people can step up. I think certainly you are good enough, but I think like somebody that's played majors is more of a safer bet than somebody that's played minors for a season.
Just in my own defense, I did play majors first season. I'm on a comeback. It's a comeback tour.
And he did win the league that season as well.
Yeah, in the one half you played in the finals. You were destroyed.
Yeah, well, the rest of the season I had a better gas than you did last season, Fordin. Oh, but
Burn.
I think I did anyway. I don't want to check, but anyway, yeah. But I think what this is pointing out is that there is actually kind of a lack this season of proven starters. People that are proven as major starters actually available for the draft. I mean, you're looking, and we're almost certain that there are going to be attackers and defenders on both teams that are not 100% proven at majors level, that are going to be started. So somebody's going to have to step up, really.
Oh hell, that's true already almost, because I mean, when you look at the co-captains, we've got a lot of players in there who, are not necessarily particularly well proven. I mean, like I said in a thread earlier, Friday mostly played minors last season. He's with Panda, and that's going to be a really interesting team, because obviously he did very well in minors, and he got the fuck you and your gasp awards. But yeah, he's not necessarily that well proven. And in another sense as well, it's almost as though there are a lot of players who everyone sort of knows from Pugs and Mumble, but as you said, Dr. D, they're not necessarily all actually proven in league. So we're going more off of perhaps Pugs experience this season rather than league experience, for the draft. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
If we move on to kind of this is a group of people we'll show you on the screen now. We'll start with the attackers, who we're confident that this will make up. We've shown you the top 6 attackers that we think will definitely be picked in the first 2 rounds, and these 6 we think 3 of them will go in the round, and the rest will go afterwards. So we couldn't quite decide between us. So we've got Dusty, we've got Fordin, we've got Whatball, we've got Charles, we've got Jufter, and we've got Noctiz. And DaEvil, would you like to talk us through a couple of these?
Yeah, we can start from the top with Dusty. Dusty is a player who played for Liverpool in Season 1, which is probably not the best track record for anyone. In Season 2, he played for Bali Saint-Germain, but was basically a 5th man behind Mike C and Nerl, who I think pretty much played almost all ELTP. However, I've seen Dusty improve a lot over these last 2 seasons, and I think he's really ready to make a mark in ELTP in a much larger way than he ended up in the first season. And I think that's something we're going to hopefully be able to see. I think even Bali Saint-Germain made a mistake not playing him in the final, because Nerl and Mikesy were not working, and they desperately needed something to work there. So his chance to really make a mark is long overdue. Next up, we have Fordin. Fordin, he played Major League for Bayern Munich, my team, last season. He started on defense mainly. That was where he was drafted. But in the end, he eventually migrated to almost pure offense in the end. And it took a while for him to warm up. But by the end of the season, he and Coral managed to really do some pretty good shit at the end of the season, managing a win, causing Dukester City to just miss out on a playoff spot.
I mean, we were talking about mine and Fordin's gasp earlier. I made it up. I didn't know. And actually, just interestingly, because I obviously played solid D for the whole of the first season, but my total gas was a modest 4.39. Yours last season was 4.38 for it, so I did beat it by 0.1 over on the total.
Well played.
So the other 4 players we've got in there: Whatball, Charles, Jufter, and Noctiz. Now Whatball, I mean, the main issue of Whatball is, I mean, he obviously has been a captain for a couple of seasons, but whether people will pick him, whether he's the amount of time he's going to be there. And I think you were saying earlier, DaEvil, that some people actually rate him a bit lower than maybe as a captain level, more on a level with Dusty sort of thing, not one of the league leaders on offense. So that might go against what Ball's favour, especially his moving house. I think his availability. I think availability wise, if he was completely available, he might be in that top list. But then looking at Charles, Jufter, and Noctiz, I know OnlyBall, you played with Jufter, didn't you?
Yeah. We had, for Ron BC, we had him and Meth on O, which for the majority of the season absolutely wrecked minors. I think Jifter's one of those people who you'll be defending a base and then suddenly he'll be there getting a cap with a flag. I think he's certainly good enough. I think the main thing that go against him is that some people may not get along. I think him and Panda have already had a falling out, but and also the fact that he hasn't got a mic may be a definitive factor in it. But apart from that, I certainly think he's good enough.
So he's never used his mic in league. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he missed the last 5 weeks of the minor season because he was away, but the first 7 weeks, not at all, he didn't use it. But he's very good on the macros. It's not quite the same, but it's something.
I've certainly played with him, and he's wrecked me in quad contenders a couple of times, and he's played well. But I would be surprised if with no mic, even with his season performance, if he goes at that stage.
It's things like I was saying, he comes to base and flagging gets capped, but if there's blockers there and he comes into the base and you don't know he's coming, it's some things like that could cost him a place in majors.
And so coming finally to Charles and Noctis with the offenders. DaEvil, do you want to talk a little bit about these two?
Charles, he's been playing minor league for this last season, and he's been showing some really good moves. But one concern that props up is that he's a little bit too careless on offense and maybe a little bit unreliable, especially for offense and defense, which may be one of the factors that may cause him not to be a starting offender at least. But he has a lot of potential, and if he keeps up the amount of work he's been putting in and it improves at the same rate, I think we'll be seeing him starting at least towards the mid of the season. Noctis, on the other hand, is a player who's been around for a while, and he's been playing some in the tryouts now recently, and he's been really impressing both me and a lot of other captains. So I wouldn't be surprised if I saw him being picked in the next 2 rounds, because he looks like he's really getting ready for some prime time this season.
So now if we move on to the defenders, so we've kind of got 4 defenders that we think 2 of them will make up the final list of 11. These 4 should all go quite early, one way or another. And we've got our very own OnlyBall. We've got Sheldon, we've got MS Byrne, and we've got Nick Cage. So we'll start with you, OnlyBall. I'm not sure what other people think. I think OnlyBall had a good season, very good season in minors, was nominated for the minors defensive player of the season. And managed to translate that into decent majors form when called up to replace Ron. But, I think the OnlyBall's big test is he going to be able to kind of translate that when he doesn't have such a good team around him. I mean, it's easy enough to be a good defender when you're partnered with Liddy and you've got Deadnan and Orb ahead of you. But whether you can do that when you maybe don't have a stronger team around you is probably going to be a real test. So I think that'll be the main thing for you, OnlyBall, whether you can actually step up to majors where you don't have such a great team around you, which I hope for your sake that you can. Fordin, you want to talk about Sheldon a little bit?
Yeah, Sheldon has been a guy who's been playing. He signed up as both. He's also been at the tryouts today and earlier, and he's been pretty impressive to me. I have to say he plays both offense and defense, but I think he's quite good at defense. He should probably stick to that. But I think he's a great player. He has great potential. He hasn't had a lot of league experience, so a captain picking him up can still need him and try to get him to play the way he wants. So I think he's a good pickup.
If we look at MS,
if you look at the,
I was going to say about MS Byrne. MS Byrne is kind of like I'd say he's proven at majors level. So I mean, why don't you think he's an automatic pick, DaEvil?
I think if we look at season 1, he definitely showed that he's a really good defender. He and Hypnome really helped Rolling BC get their league title in the first season and helped them. But after that in the playoffs, they kind of faltered. But I wouldn't put the blame on MS Byrne or anyone for that. Because apparently I was more down to them not practicing a lot towards the end of the season. However, if you look at season 2, MS Byrne got picked by What was the name again? Yeah. What was the team? But what was the name again?
Duke.
Bucharest. That's right. Yeah, was big for
You can edit
Bucharest.
this.
Exactly. There are a lot
I'm
of
leaving
names.
that in. I'm not editing it out.
Yeah. Yeah, he was picked by Bucharest, and he started playing for them on defense, but he kind of disappeared towards the middle of the season, and eventually Dude ended up replacing him on defense, which is part of the reason why I think Dude he played well in MS Burns' absence, and I think that's part of the reason why he will probably be drafted as a starter this season. But back to Burn, I think a player that kind of disappears in the middle of the season is somebody you don't really want to take a starting draft bet on. So I think most captains will look at them as Burn and see what happened in the last season and say that, yeah, you know what, if I'm going to pick him, which will be a good pick, I'm probably going to wait until I have my starters ready, at least just in case.
And final one on this list we've not discussed, Nick Cage. And I mean, it's super Nick Cage, decent defender. Can you see him leading the line for one of the defensive teams? Can you see him being one of those top 2 defenders?
Yeah, I think he does have the ability. He's played. He's played minors last season. I mean, he was I think a 5th or 6th round pick last season, and he also, if I remember correctly, he actually wrecked one of my teams on called Contenders. He did really well against us, and yeah, he's definitely. I think he's had a couple of tournament wins as well. So he's done a lot. He's been around. He's obviously been around Mumble a lot, and people are going to know him through that. You know, his performance in that sort of thing, in pugs and stuff. But I think the one thing, maybe he doesn't necessarily have the strategic, you know, the majors level strategies yet. I've played with him a couple of times. Maybe he's not necessarily stuck, to 2D2, or maybe he's gone on to rig up when he was on D, or perhaps come off of a rig up when he was near the flag. I think he's probably one of the lower ability players in that bracket we've got right there. But considering his draft last season, I think he's got a very good chance. Yeah.
So we're gonna kind of fly through some of the 5th men. So these are the people who we think will probably go. Some of them could definitely go and be starters this season. They may be picked as starters. We're thinking it's more likely that they will be outside of the 4 starters for all the teams, but some of the captains could surprise us. But that they are all likely to go quite high up in the draft, and many of them could force themselves into the teams. A quick note on a couple of people. We had Babel and Leroy on this list, who have both resigned. Leroy from Tag Pro entirely, which makes me very sad. And Babel, just from the draft, is he planning on signing up as a free agent? I understand. Is that right?
That's the rumor I've heard.
So Babel maybe
He's confirmed it himself, by the way. Yeah.
Is he signed up from the start as a free agent or later?
After a week or after a couple of weeks when he's back.
Okay. Seems strange not to just stay in the draft, but anyway, that's his choice. And Leroy, unfortunately, we thought Leroy might be one of the 5th men because he was going to be away for a while at the start anyway, but he's not coming back now. I think coming back. But DaEvil, on the list for 5th men for offensive players, we had Neb, Just Having Fun, U-Man, and Sunny23. So do you want to kind of take us through those 4?
Yeah, sure. Neb, he signed up for season 2 and was drafted by Bayern Munich. He was away for a lot of the time, but he came back towards the end of the season, and he basically played offense for Bayern Munich in the minors and helped Bayern Munich reach a semi-final. Just Having Fun is a person who has impressed a lot in the tryout so far, and personally, I think we might even see him as a starter from the start of this season because of how well he's done in tryouts. U-Man is a man who is a person who's really active on Mumble and who is really active in pugging and pubbing and a really big fan of Deadman. And he's a solid offensive player, and I think he has a lot to show, especially compared to a lot of the people who are saying going to be on starters. And if he proves himself on a team that picks him, he might rise in the ranks soon enough to be a starting offender even this season. And we also have Sunny23, who is a player who recently joined us only a few months ago, and she's been improving at a pretty impressive rate, in my opinion. And she's already playing some solid offense and is showing a lot of well thought out moves. And she basically seems to know what's going on around her to a larger extent than a lot of other offensive players.
Yeah, DaEvil, if I could just add a little more about Sunny. I think when we were talking about Fordin earlier, how perhaps one of the things that has kept him from, being drafted very highly was, perhaps the confidence or the self-doubt or whatever. I think Sunny maybe feels a bit like that as well. Like she's kind of self-critical a little bit. I've talked to her a lot and played with her a lot, and I think she has great aggressive offense. Like she's very, very strong pulling player in my opinion, and she just rates herself a bit too low. Another thing, I think maybe the one thing she needs to just improve on a little bit is her kind of support offense. Sometimes she can be a bit of a selfish player a little bit maybe, but yeah, I would definitely put her exactly right there in the fifth man spot. It would be perfect for her.
So we'll move on to the fifth men for the defenders. So again, quite a lot of people on this list. We've actually got 7 people down who we think could be, the kind of third choice defenders, really pushing for starting positions. I'll kind of start by mentioning Fred. Now, Fred, people might be surprised to see Fred on here, but the reason we put Fred on here is because he is going to be away for the first month. Now, he may go earlier. People may take that kind of punt on him, but people may want to get their starting team together. So Fred's going to be one of these really interesting people because he is very, very good. DaEvil, I know you had some thoughts on Fred's draft position.
Yeah, I basically disagree with you guys in that I'm almost certain that Fred will go in the next 2 rounds. He's simply too good to pass up, even if he's going to miss 3 weeks. And I think he proved this season how valuable he can be to a team, even coming in halfway through the season. And I just think that a player who's confident in his in the defense they can have in the meantime will definitely look to the opportunity to draft Fred to make sure they get him, and then get someone else on defense meanwhile that they can draft in the later round that they know they can trust at least.
There's a lot of players on this list that could be that player that steps up in the meantime until Fred gets back. So I agree with you, actually. Fred could go. Actually, people will take him as their starting defender. I think one of those could be Chaos Quentin, although he could be someone that does push, in my opinion, for defensive player starting. I think he's underrated, probably because he kind of underrates himself a little bit. He's someone that's very light on the team. Do you know what I mean? He keeps things light. He's got good communication, good tactical awareness, and he's a solid contained defender, having played with him myself. And I think he could go a lot higher than he probably gives himself credit for. And I think people would underrate him, what he brings to the team as a whole in terms of his positive attitude, even when the team are losing. I think people would underrate him at their own peril. And DrMcDonald, we'll come to you. We'll kind of talk about Noodles and Kvatras a little bit. Both decent defenders. Where do you think they're going to go then?
I personally rate Kvatras pretty highly. I think if he was selected, he could certainly do a good job in majors. But I think in reality, he's more likely to be, because of the quality of defenders that we've already listed, he's probably more likely to be a Myers defender, and I do think whoever gets him, he will be their star Myers defender. With Noodles, similar case, I think he's good enough, but the problem with him is what most people will have seen of him is that the ELTP final, which was pretty horrific for BSG all round, and particularly him, which may go against him in the draft.
We'll talk a little bit about Rems as well. Obviously the commissioner probably hurt a little bit by how much he actually has to spend organising. Doesn't get to just hang out and mumble and actually play the game that much. I mean, Fordin, how do you think Rems is going to do this season in the draft?
Rems is a defender that's pretty good. He is good at positioning, good at everything that the defender has to do. But one of his issues is mainly, I think, that he doesn't play that often. So some of the things that go wrong with Rems is probably due to not playing that much. but I still see him going pretty early, like probably 5th or 6th round.
Yeah, I also think like in terms of Rems that we like this season compared to last season, he's gonna have a lot more time, so that's definitely gonna raise his stock a little bit. And also from what I've seen of him on offense and defense is that he's pretty solid, and he usually meshes well together with his teammates. So like in a case with which we mentioned earlier with Fred, who might get drafted earlier but not be available for some of the season, I could easily see a player like Rems being drafted later and filling in for Fred at least until he comes back and doing it well.
We're going to come to you, Super, now to talk a little bit about Wobbler. Wobbler was someone that I was chastised for not rating that highly when we had the initial talk about this, because I think it's just I've not played with her that much, and when I have played with her, I've not seen the amazing things that everyone else has apparently seen. How do you rate her?
Yeah, I've got a couple of kind of conflicting ideas about Wobbler, because I think I have to agree with the kind of prevailing opinion that she's a very strong defender. Particularly in tryouts the past couple of days, she has been pretty much getting like, the most returns in I think every game I've seen her play, and she's just a return machine on D. I think she's definitely a strong defender that I would put easily on the 5th man level of technique. But actually, I think it's more important, almost kind of more important in terms of the 5th man to have someone who's actually like very, very into the whole, guiding the team and kind of talking to everybody and being very active, kind of leading the minors, if you know what I mean. And that I'm not so sure Wobbler necessarily, because she's active on Mumble, but I don't think she. I'm not sure if she can really lead a team exactly. I mean, she's a great player, but funnily enough, I could almost see her starting majors with the defense she's been playing. This in the tryouts recently, she really brought out her A game. So it's a bit of a funny thing. I could maybe disagree with putting her in the 5th man spot and saying her, maybe you want somebody who could lead a team better for the 5th man, but actually she probably has the technique and the skill to play majors, in my opinion. So yeah,
I'm kind of inclined to agree. I think like she's really great as like a secondary defender. So I think
definitely
she may even look better as like a secondary majors defender than a first minors defender because of the way she plays. I wouldn't be surprised if she was selected there.
And now we're going to move on to look at the lower picks. So these are some of the people that we think might come a little bit lower down in the draft order, but could still have a big impact on the LTP. Maybe they're hidden gems or more well-known players that we think could actually break into the team. We're going to start with a player called Uncalbert, which me and OnlyBall have had the pleasure of playing with for Algeria. So if OnlyBall, you want to talk about Uncalbert a little bit?
Yeah, I think he's a pretty new player, and like you said, he was drafted to our team for the Tokyo World Cup, and every time I played with him, he was very impressive. Whether it was playing with me or yourself, like every time he was more than capable, and yeah, I'm sure he'll be whoever gets him will end up having him as a starting minors player at least. He's got great potential to be a top class defender, I think.
And looking at Thud, another defender there. I mean, DaEvil1 Fordin, you both played with Thud last season. I mean, looking at the stats, Thud seemed to struggle a little bit with majors, but was kind of forced into it very early. Almost out of necessity. How do you think Thud's going to do next season?
I think Thud is going to surprise a lot of people next season. He came in pretty inexperienced on Bayern Munich, and he's picked up on stuff very quickly. I think he's one of the fastest learners I've seen like in this game since I started playing competitively, and I think he's already at least on a very solid minors level, and if he keeps it up, he's definitely going to be on the level of a starting defensive player by mid-season. I'm not sure if he's going to be starting mid-season, but I think he's going to be at that level pretty soon.
And if we move on to Peter Baelish, a well-known player, well-known personality, shall we say, on Mumble. But I think of how much I've spoken to Peter, and then I'm like, I've barely ever played with him. So, I mean, Fordin, what are your thoughts on Peter and how he's going to do next season?
I think Peter is a good offender. He's quite a solid offender, and sometimes he's a bit flamboyant, so he's not always performing as good as he can. But what I'm really wondering about is his personality and how it will match with the captain that will want to draft him. We all know he's very his personality is very upfront. So some captains might not want to draft him because of that, but some other captains might want to draft him because of that. So I'm really interested in seeing if somebody wants to get him for 5th man, or if he will drop to a lower rounds for like 8th or 9th. But I'm sure you definitely do get picked up.
Yeah, I would definitely have to. Actually, I probably disagree that he would be as low as you've rated him here. I think he could conceivably, lead a minus team as 5th man, because he's. I agree with what you say, Fordin, about his personality and stuff. It's very strong, and maybe some people might not gel with him. But I think just the fact that he's so active and he plays so much and he gets to know everybody, I think that's a really, really important factor. For someone who can like lead a team. And I think he's got the technique on O to really be higher than we've rated him here. So yeah.
No, we're not going to go through everyone on this list, but Fordin, you want to say a few words on Zachman, didn't you?
Yeah, I promised Zachman I would say a few words about him because I like the guy. He's always there for training, for practices for Ball in Munich. He's been the captain of our minors team. He's solid on defense, so I definitely hope that he will get picked up, maybe on the same team again as me. We played 2 seasons together, but go draft Zachman.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Loj as well. So I think Loj, similar to Chaos Quinn in a little way, kind of makes a joke out of himself a little bit, which probably makes people rate him lower than his actual talent is. And I think he's someone that, he knows the game. He's quite active and probably has a good tactical nous about him. And probably if he just trains a little bit and almost takes himself a little bit more seriously. I mean, what do you reckon, Super? Could we see Loj kind of breaking in a little bit?
Yeah, I would have to say that, if he played a lot, perhaps more than he currently does, and sort of just focused on his actual, ability improvements, he would definitely, hit the high picks, like the 5th man. He'd be a brilliant 5th man. And the one thing though is a little bit funny. He's probably going to be not as available maybe this season because apparently him and Cookie have to be signed up as a pair or something, and like maybe he'll be a little distracted. No, but yeah, no, I think he's a great player, very intelligent. So yeah.
And now we're going to talk about 4 players briefly that a lot of people that just hang around the Mumble might not recognize as much, or like. I'd say they're probably less well known than a lot of the players that we've kind of gone through, although maybe Uncloud but could come in this group. So Fordin, Smack That's someone that you've seen at the tryouts that you think might be a bit of a hidden gem.
Yeah, I've seen him. I played against him and with him on Smack That today. I did not know that player at all, but he has really, really, really good micro jukes. I see him if he's. To be honest, if he is going to play, if he's going to play a lot, if he's getting picked up, if he trains, I think he might get as good as player. It's a bold statement, I know that, but he's been really impressing me today.
And then finally, DaEvil, you've got DaEvil's been like the amazing scout and has basically got some massive draft lists. So he's not going to give all his top tips away, but you've got 3 players that you'd like to talk about that you think might be the hidden gems in the rough.
Yeah, I like to talk about 3 players quickly. I think first I should mention Yin Yang. He's a player who's recently shown up to Mumble and shown off his vocal abilities, and he's a really good singer. But what surprised me is when watching him in the tryouts is that he's also a really solid player. And I think a lot of captains are taking notice of that. So I think that's a dark horse to be drafted earlier than people think. We also have a player called JU, who also really impressed me in tryouts on Monday. He just seems to really know what he's doing and is really capable of analyzing the situation around him and reacting to it. His technique is also really good. So, I mean, I'm not going to say he's going to be playing majors this season, but that wouldn't surprise me. And finally, I have another player that's called Got to Have My Pops. It's not spelled correctly, but I don't care. That's how we're going to pronounce it. And he's also another player that he's a little rough around the edges, but from what I've seen, he has a lot of potential. And anyone who picks him up, if they can get him to show up throughout the season, they probably are going to have someone who's going to improve a lot and may even get at a major level in the end.
Just a little thing about Gotta Have My Pops. I was actually speaking to him yesterday. Apparently the origin of his name is actually when he first came to Tag Pro, he looked at the scoreboard and he thought Pops was something he was supposed to get. So he was happy that he was getting popped a lot. That's quite funny. I'm sure he's improved since then, though.
That's the best reason for a Tag Pro name ever. Okay, so that kind of concludes our lower picks. Okay, so we've got the final thing that we want to go through is a few American wildcards, some of the American players that might have a big impact across the pond. So we've got 4 of these. We're going to start with Real Duck, who OnlyBall's going to talk about a little bit.
Yeah, Real Duck is a Canadian player who was semi-regular for Rolling BC this season. He didn't play a lot because of his MLTP commitments, but he when he did play, he absolutely wrecked on attack. I think he came back to us for the playoffs when we were short on players after Jufta had left, and he was very impressed. Every time he played, he just was the best player on our team by miles. So I'm sure he'll get drafted by somebody.
DaEvil, you want to talk about Exile?
Yeah, Exile is a player who's going to. He's been a little bit around in American leagues, and last season he played minors mainly because he was in a really strong team. And this season he's going to be a captain in MLTP, so he's definitely a player who knows his stuff. Aside from that, I know Exile is a person who really likes to have fun, and he can take the game seriously, but not too seriously. So if you draft him, he's going to be the kind of player that knows what to do, is able to tell your team and teach them how to behave in certain situations, but also keep the spirits up.
And next one we had on the list was Fez, and if Super wants to talk about Fez a bit.
Yeah, just some quick words about Fez. I mean, I'm obviously going to be biased because he was on my team last season, but Fez really is my favorite American player. He's brilliant. His commitment to ELTP was amazing. He turned up to every single practice, and literally he played a lot. I don't think he played too much in terms of the minors, but he was there all the time, every single practice, and really, really helpful. I actually think if people knew more about Fez, well, I mean, he's known because he's a co-captain or a captain in the US. I can't remember which, but if people sort of in ELTP knew more about him, I think he could make 5th man easy because his ping is not even particularly bad either. He's a truly brilliant player and a very committed player. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's got their eye on him somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised.
We actually, with Poland Munich, we wanted to pick Fez up, but he was picked up just like the spot before we wanted to pick him up. So we took Chinseng instead.
Ooh, nice trade-off, not bad.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, if DaEvil, you want to finish talking about Ginseng for us?
Just a quick word on Fez. I really agree with what SuperFunHugs is saying. He's a really dedicated player, and if he's picked, he's going to be there, and he's going to be good. In terms of Ginseng, he was a player that we didn't know a lot about when we drafted, but I knew that he would be a good alternative for an American player. And he turned out to be a player who just showed up to almost everything he could. And he basically wrecked shit on minors and was one of the main reasons that Bayern Munich minors managed to get to the semifinals. He and Neb together on offense were just a revelation at times. He also played some majors, but he had some issues with scheduling, so he couldn't show up to all of them. But he is just a really dedicated player who has a lot of competitive experience and knows what it means to win things. And I think he would be going reasonably early at this draft. Maybe not in the next 2 rounds, but pretty quickly after that.
So there we have it. That is our experts' view into the draft. Gone through a lot of players there, and what you guys see on the screen now is you're going to see our predictions. All 5 of us have made predictions about the order, the players that are going to go in the first 2 rounds. So basically, making up what you should be able to see is essentially the top 4 players for each team, the starting 4, what we think it's going to be. So we're going to do that, and we want other people to comment and do that as well. So look in the comments of the thread that this video has been posted, and should be some more information about how to make your own predictions, and we'll have a little competition and get involved. Thank you for joining us for this show. Thank you to DaEvil1 SuperFunHugs, TheOnlyBall, and Fordin for joining me, and we will see you on Sunday for the draft. 5 p.m. BST is when it starts. We'll be doing the whole draft. And remember, later that evening we've got the ELTP champions versus the MLTP champions, and then after that we've got the All-Stars of ELTP versus the All-Stars of MLTP. It's going to be a great day of Tag Pro. If you're also awake at 10 a.m, the OLTP finals are going to be streamed. I'm getting up nice and early to commentate that as well, so it's going to be a manic day of Tag Pro. So make sure you join us on Sunday for the draft. Get your predictions in, especially if you're a captain. It'd be interesting to see who you want to draft, and we will see you there. Thanks for helping, guys. We'll see you on Sunday.
Bye.
Thank you too.